Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Yona of the Dawn, chapter 200. When we last left our heroes, the South Kai dignitaries had arrived. Yona kind of made fools of them all through the meeting, but she also met one of the dignitaries named Lan Tan, who felt a little sickly and he threw up all over Yona's robe, so the meeting was adjourned. Yona went to go talk to him. Afterward, she found out how corrupt the South Kai nobles and aristocracy and royals all are. And then the next morning, he was found dead, poisoned, with Yona as the chief suspect. Though it is very likely, as Kai-suk says, that it was a slow-acting poison that the dignitaries had kind of given to him before they arrived at the castle, to both frame Yona and get grounds for war, and presumably get rid of a noble that was not really a big fan of them. But anyway, they have their grounds for war, which is not great. It looks like we're going to war with South Kai. Also, the theory that Yona is responsible for Lan Tan's death is kind of disseminating throughout the castle, which is a little weird. I would have figured Kai-suk would have, stamped that down. Given that he knows that Yona isn't responsible and they're ostensibly on the same side right now. But who's to say? So we have here the magazine cover to celebrate Yona getting 200 chapters, with Yona and Hawk and a little folding fan. Yeah, it's cute. It's a cute little cover. We have here some Crimson Illness arc images. I'm not sure what it's advertising for. A calendar, maybe? Or there's volume 34 we do see. But also something that might actually be a calendar. I'm not sure. But anyway, we open where last chapter ended with Hawk hearing about Yona's supposed involvement in Lan Tan's death. And Hawk asks one of the soldiers, "What did you say Princess Yona did?" Well, I've heard that a delegation from South Kai has arrived in the castle, and Princess Yona sat at the high-level talks in place of His Majesty Soo-Won. And Hawk, who knows none of this, by the way, is just, huh? Then, in the middle of a conference, one of the emissaries fell ill and died while being nursed by the princess. And then it seems the delegates are in a fit of rage. Of course, we don't think Princess Yona did in the least. So yeah, the soldiers, despite the fact that no one is really publicly countering these rumors, don't seem to believe the rumors, which is a relief, at the very least. And Hawk asks, why was the princess acting as a substitute for the king? Well, it must be that. This is another soldier there, who I don't recognize. Princess Yona is eventually going to marry His Majesty Soo-Won. That's it. Yeah, given that they don't know about the Crimson Illness, they're kind of left to their own devices to guess. Which is going to leave a bad impression for poor Hawk. But anyway, she was put in charge of a major task as the future queen. And Hawk is just kind of he's very stiff, very kind of upset, but in a solemn way, I guess, for lack of a better word. Let us concede the absolute unthinkable, merely for the sake of argument. Why isn't the king sitting beside her at the conference? I like the idea that he's just blatant, the absolute unthinkable. Despite the fact that I don't think these guys would know that there is any kind of even friendship between Hawk and or no, that they'd imagine a little bit, but not the idea that there's anything vaguely approaching romance there. Anyway, the lighter skinned soldier beats me. Some sort of diplomacy tactic. And then we finally get our chapter title, Chapter 200, No Time Left. Okay, I don't know what that title is about. But anyway, Hawk is just, Hawk, how much does Hawk know about Yonhi? Because I'm curious if Hawk is kind of putting the pieces together. He probably does not know about Yonhi, being a descendant of the Crimson Dragon King. But he might know that she was very sick. And if he does, he might be able to figure out that maybe Soo-Won is not as healthy as he pretends to be. But anyway, moving right along. We see Jae-ha talking to some scholar or something. And he's telling him, then Lady Princess Yona has become the object of groundless suspicions, right? And the guy asks, groundless suspicions? No matter how you cut it, a princess killing a dignitary is unnatural, no? And Jae-ha turns to Yoon. Hey boy, don't you agree? And Yoon just looks at him, maybe at the lack of familiarity there. Is Jae-ha, are they trying to hide? I don't think they're really trying to hide that Yoon knows Yona. Given that Yoon openly told Minsu that last chapter. Anyway, hey boy, don't you agree? Yeah. Then if the princess got entangled in some scheme, isn't that all the more reason why we have to clarify things? Do you hear, boy? And Yona, not Yona, Yoon, I'm still baffled by your presence, Lord Official, sir. Oh, maybe, Jae-ha's in like a scholar robe. Maybe he's the one in disguise. If this rando does not really recognize Jae-ha. So in response to him still baffled by your presence, Jae-ha responds, by me? I'm but a mere government official, though. And he, like, waves at these maids who all, like, swoon over him. And Yoon, deadpan, aren't you sticking out too much, Lord Justin Official? And they hear a voice. Hey, you over there! And Jae-ha kind of jolts. What's with your idle whispering? Please excuse us! And they all the maids and the one rando guy all kind of run away from the guard. And Jae-ha turns, then I'll be excusing myself as well. And he's like grabbed by the shoulder. You stay right there. And he thinks, was I found out? Look over here. I don't want to. I'm shy, you see, and someone brings their fist in. And Jae-ha, I'm trying to figure out what exactly is happening there. I think it kind of breaks free of the guard or something. And Jae-ha looks, and it's Hawk. Hawk is the one who's kind of noticed him. Of course Hawk would realize who he is. Gosh, what kind of government official are you? Something's cracked in my body. Hawk? So yeah, now we got our Jae-ha Hawk reunion. And Jae-ha points at him, what are you up to? You'll stand out if you come here, won't you? And Hawk just looks at him like you're one to talk. And then Hawk more seriously, did you hear about Miss Princess getting entangled in some weird stuff? Of course I'd come here. And Yoon chimes in, this Yona is a criminal business is what's suspicious. And then Hawk goes on, what's weighing on my mind is that the princess took part in the high-level talks in place of the king. What's Soo-Won doing, I wonder? And Yoon asks, maybe he's absent? And then Jae-ha, who does have the information about the Crimson Illness, Soo-Won must have come down with the Crimson Illness. Excuse me. And that's why Yona, dear, went in his stead. The moment an ordinary person gets to know of that, they'll get the death penalty. I can't tell these two that. So yeah, we see, eventually they're gonna have to find out. But I'm not entirely sure how. And then Hawk asks, by the way, Droopy Eyes, you went earlier to meet the princess, didn't you? How did that go? And that kind of stuns Jae-ha. As I recall, that conversation is where he found out about the Crimson Illness, which is a little bit too close for comfort for Jae-ha, who just kind of responds, she seemed well, and she sent everyone her regards. And Hawk kind of looks at him for a moment before he asks, you're hiding something, aren't you? No? Why? Speak up. I'm saying I'm not hiding anything. And then Hawk asks, were you told not to come anymore or something? And Jae-ha just looks at him, and after a long pause responds, well, she did say it would be a problem if I came. And then Hawk looks at him, and then asks, she said something about me, didn't she? And Jae-ha just kind of, tries to find the words to say, before he finally says, she told me to convey to you that she doesn't need an exclusive bodyguard. And Yoon is just kind of stunned. Why would she? But Hawk, much calmer. So it has come to that. I think she meant it as, don't push yourself too much, Hawk, because I had told her that you would become a Sky Tribe soldier and were pouring your heart and soul into it. And then Yoon asked, then Jaeha, why did she tell you not to go to her? Because she isn't particularly keen on seeing me? And then Hawk asks, is that the real reason? There's no way the princess wouldn't be glad to see you. Something is going on around the princess. Of course, Jaeha is kind of downcast at that, as he knows what that something is, the knowledge of the illness, and can't say anything, obviously. And Hawk continues, if the princess is safe, I've been planning for a while and seeing how she's faring myself. But if she's gotten implicated in a murder, I can't remain a spectator any longer. And Yoon asks him, even if she says that it would be a problem if you go for her again? When that happens, I'll just look for a way to protect her from a distance. So yeah, we had a little romantic bit of Hawk. But then we cut back to Yona with the main plot, as she's just kind of, staring out, probably dealing with everything that happened to Lan Tan. As someone comes in, my lady princess, his majesty is woken up. We see Soo-Won, we see like beads of sweat on his face, downcast, exhausted, and I think he's talking to Minsu there, with at least K-Shook and Judo and Yona in the room. And Soo-Won says, I see. And the delegation said it was a declaration of war. And Yona asks, will war break out? To which Kai-Suk responds, sooner or later, we won't be able to avoid war. We'll definitely insist that our side committed no wrongdoing, though. However, Your Majesty, I am aware that it would be a hard undertaking to wage war on South Kai at Your Majesty's present condition. We mustn't let this contrived opportunity slip. If it's now, the 5 tribes moving as one will be able to conquer South Kai. So yeah, I think if I recall correctly, I did make a notion last time that perhaps Kai-Suk was more involved in some like 4D chess move to bait South Kai into going to war, so that Koga could conquer South Kai. And I'm not sure that that's right, but I think he definitely sees the opportunity and is more than willing to go for it. Anyway, or rather, now's the only time. And Soo-Won thinks with his hand over his head, only while I'm still alive. And Judo says, in the event that Your Majesty is unable to go into battle in person, will Advisor K-Shook be the Commander-in-Chief? And K-Shook is just kind of silent at that. But K-Shook thinks there's no one other than His Majesty who can unite the 5 tribes into facing South Kai. Someone other than His Majesty. Someone who stands shoulder to shoulder with His Majesty. Someone who possesses the power to unify. They're gonna make it Yona. Yona's gonna be the Commander-in-Chief. And yeah, he has the image of Yona. And K-Shook is shocked that he's thinking of Yona. No. What am I thinking? This is war. The reason we entered an alliance with her was to bring the 4 dragons under His Majesty. Even though there are other candidate successors to the throne, why am I thinking of Princess Yona? Who are the other successors to the throne? Like, if it has to stay within the royal family, there's kind of, as far as we know, just Soo-Won and Yona left. Like, I don't think there's, and maybe they're like distant cousins somewhere who could be successors in the case of Soo-Won's death. But I don't think we've really seen them ever. But he tells himself, calm down. I can't let anxiety raise its head. And Soo-Won asks, the delegation haven't left yet, right? Yes. Thus, Your Majesty, I know. And he stands up and puts on his coat. I'm going out. Yona comments, I'm going as well. But Judo kind of stops her. They have been clamoring you were the perpetrator. You shouldn't show yourself before them. And Yona tells Judo, they know full well they're the real perpetrators here. There's no reason for me to hide. And Soo-Won looks at Yona there. The two of them walk to go talk to the Kai delegates. And as they're doing so, Yona asks him, "How are you feeling?" And Soo-Won is just silent. "You become tight-lipped, even though you talk so much in the old days." Um, and then Soo-Won just continues to walk, and he thinks to himself, "You don't have to say anything. Rely on those around you in times of suffering." Is that something Yona told him? 'Cause I assume this was Soo-Won's thoughts, but the person in the picture there looks like Yona. Unless I'm mistaken, which I very well could be. um, oh no, this is Yona's thoughts, because the thought continues, "Don't you dare die as you please at a time like this." And then we see Jaeha and Hawk playing around. As Jaeha chases after Hawk. "Hawk, just ride on my back. You like soaring in the skies, don't you?" And Hawk responds, "You'll stick out like a sore thumb and be shot down again. You don't need to tag along." And Jaeha responds, "But you're going to miss your secret rendezvous with Yona, dear." And Hawk is just, "That's not what I'm going for." But then he sees something. It's almost certainly going to be Soo-Won and Yona going to run into Kai. Yeah, there's Soo-Won. And he thinks, well, if it isn't Soo-Won, so he isn't absent. And then he sees Yona with him, of course. Along with, I think that's K-Shook and Judo. And Jaeha asks, "What are you gonna do? Try again later?" And then we see the Kai delegates with Longbeard, whose name I don't think we ever learned in the front, who says, "King Soo-Won, finally granting us a chance at an audience, and we're about to go home. And more than that, it can't be that Princess Yona. You have some nerve to show your face to us." And Soo-Won responds, "I have heard about it. Of the tragic accident involving Lord Lan Tan." "What accident? Princess Yona, who's standing right there, fed him poison, didn't she? We'll be sure to report that clearly to His Highness Chagol. This country will be overrun by the rage of our countless soldiers before long." And Soo-Won responds, "It would be difficult to prove Princess Yona's innocence, wouldn't it? Then I beseech you to at least let us provide Lord Lan Tan one more time. Then I beseech you to at least let us provide Lord Lan Tan with a dignified burial as proof of our good faith." There we go. That's how you use your words. "As we're going to hold a magnificent funeral here, I wish you to take part in it." That's almost certainly a trap. I have no idea what the trap is for, but it is almost certainly a trap. There is no way he's not trying to trap them here. And they're just kind of stunned. "Eh? Don't say nonsense. You have no intention to stage such a horrible play." And then Soo-Won cuts him off. "Naturally, you're going to grace us with your attendance, no? Since you're so stricken with anger and sorrow. Paying your last respects to a precious friend, please take your time to heal your sorrow. And we'll definitely provide a food taster for all your meals. Don't worry." So here he's, very much calling into question the very idea that they cared about Lan Tan in the first place. As they try to leave and miss their dear friend's funeral, would once again call into question the honesty of any of their actions. And then they're all kind of stunned as Soo-Won continues. "We're going to dispatch a fast horse to tell His Highness Chagol of the funeral." And then the four of them just think, "This king and that princess are relatives, all right." I love this panel. There's all this serious shit going on right now. That's great and all, but this is such a funny scene, a funny picture. Just the full deadpan, a gag manga face. You love to see it. And K-Shook has a little sigh of relief. Soo-Won is silent for a moment. And with that, they've kind of been forced to agree to the funeral. As Soo-Won and Yona and their delegation all leaves the little courtyard, K-Shook tells Soo-Won, "It seems this has bought us some time. We're going to be busy." And Yona just walks silently behind them. And then trips. She slips on it. She misses a step or something. And is grabbed by both Soo-Won and Hawk. Okay. I was not expecting this feels like something out of like a love triangle, romance manga. Um, and that's so not what this series is. And it's just kind of a really funny scene. Um, oh, hold on. And then Yona thinks Soo-Won lost his balance, and then he turns to thank Hawk, who she doesn't realize is Hawk yet. She just thinks he's a guard. But Soo-Won lost his balance is interesting because it's definitely Yona who slips, right? Unless we see the foot that slips is almost certainly Yona. So the hem of the robe is white, and Yona's is a darker color, it seems, unless she has a white hem that I haven't really noticed. Yeah, it looks like so in the scene in Soo-Won's bedroom, it's white, but it's darker when they leave. Um, I don't know. I'm probably looking too deep into it. It's definitely Yona. But there is this line, Soo-Won lost his balance, which is kind of odd. Might just be Soo-Won lost his balance trying to catch Yona, which could then, ruin the life of whoever soldier saw it, who is, Hawk. And we see that Hawk is pressing his arm into Yona's the sash around her waist, and pulls her into like a hug. Are you okay? And Yona's just kind of stunned. Why? And then Soo-Won's hand slips, and she starts to fall. He starts to fall. And Yona has not even noticed that it's Hawk, which is almost certainly going to cause some drama at this point. She is fully focused on, the near-death Soo-Won over here. You mustn't. We see Soo-Won is, barely staggering on. Don't collapse yet. There are many soldiers here. We see she's, holding on to Soo-Won's robe, which is going to be great for Hawk, I'm sure. Why did you come here? Hawk? Oh no, she knew it was Hawk, but she can't, show anything. Either because she can't acknowledge Hawk right now, or because she's, just too focused on making sure Soo-Won does not collapse and get everyone killed. But please. We see Soo-Won, who is not looking great. Please don't notice it. She specifically wants Hawk to get out of there, so that Hawk in particular, not all the soldiers, just Hawk, so that he does not realize that Soo-Won is dying. And sometime later, he's back with Jae-ha, and Jae-ha asks him, "Were you able to see Yona, dear?" And Hawk pauses before he says, "I was. Did something happen?" And Hawk sees the weakened, very, very unstable Soo-Won. That guy. Since when has he become that weak? Continues in the issue of December 19th. Okay. There's a lot going on here. And contrary to what I kind of figured, contrary to what I figured at the end of last chapter, this chapter is much more focused on the Crimson Illness than it is with the South Kai guys. We have the one scene of South Kai and a few conversations about, did Yona poison Lan Tan? Everyone's like, no, definitely not. We have the scene with the dignitaries, about the funeral, but really the crux of the chapter is Hawk and Soo-Won, and Yona, as Hawk realizes that Soo-Won is dying. Or not dying. He doesn't know that Soo-Won is dying. He knows that Soo-Won is weaker than he ever was. Which is, one step away from figuring out that he's sick, and then 2 steps away from getting executed. Which is not great for anyone. If anyone else finds out that Hawk knows, which is questionable. Unless, Keishuk starts executing every soldier who was on the steps right then, which is not outside the realm of possibility for Keishuk, but I don't think he'd actually go that far. But yeah, that's kind of the chapter's big moment, is both, well, there are 2. There's that one, there's Hawk realizing that Soo-Won is sick, And then, Soo-Won doing exactly what Yona did at the earlier meeting, completely, like, running circles around the dignitaries, which will buy some time before the war. Who knows how much time it will buy, as especially given how much of a warmonger Kaeshuk and Soo-Won are, especially Kaeshuk, but Soo-Won as well. Um, um, there's definitely still going to be a war, even though Soo-Won is just not in a place to go to war right now, given that he's, sick and getting worse. And Kaeshuk kind of wants to make, or a part of him wants Yona to realizes that Yona is the best choice to be in charge. Assuming that Yona would be on there, would, be as warmongery as they are. But yeah, we also get some fun Jaeha and Yoon moments. There's plenty of fun comic moments in this chapter, like the Lord Justin official scene. Like I said before, I love the like deadpan stare the dignitaries give when they realize just how similar Yona and Soo-Won are. But then yeah, the big climax is Hawk realizing that Soo-Won is dying, or is sick at the very least. Even if he does not know the full extent of it. And there really is just a lot of good tension in this final scene of Hawk grabbing Yona, and Hawk and Soo-Won both trying to grab Yona, and Hawk realizing that Soo-Won is just really, really weak now. And I'm curious if Hawk will be able to keep up the ruse that he believes in Soo-Won's strength, or if he'll end up being outed somehow, and then he'll be on the chopping block or something, and then there's still a war brewing. There's a lot going on right now, and I can't wait to see how it all plays out. So, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like, or subscribe, or, do whatever makes you happy, And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!